So I think we can open up the floor to questions. If anyone has an urgent question they'd like to ask one of our panelists, I already see a hand in the back there. If we could get a microphone to our colleague in the middle there.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kaisar from Indonesian Maritime Youths, or Maritim Muda Nusantara, the national youth organization in maritime affairs. We have more than 6,000 members and local organization in all provinces in Indonesia. And for Ms. Nadia, we are interested to have some collaboration for capacity building of Indonesian young people in maybe every province or with the most potential fisheries in Indonesia. And yeah, let's collaborate. Thank you.
On? Okay. I'll just say I'd be happy to talk more about collaboration. Like I said, we're an emerging technology, I guess, as themed here, and so we're still shaping some of our applications. So we're wide open to additional possibilities. So that sounds great.
Thank you for the question as well. I just want to note for some of the additional U.S. Agency for International Development work with regard to youth, we were participating with the Coral Triangle Initiative for protecting the coral reefs and fisheries and seafood. There is a youth ambassador program, which Indonesia is a part of, but at the end of the month, you're probably aware, Pak Frankie is coordinating here locally in Bali for the Global Youth Conference on Sustainable Development Goals, and along with the Green School here in Bali. So hopefully you're involved with that, and maybe there's some room for you to stay in Bali.
Well, thank you for those responses, and I can tell you personally, it's really exciting for me. Oh, we have a follow-up.
Just
Yeah.
adding some information. And we have also the Indonesia Blue Economy Center, and I'm the director of this center in Indonesia. So yeah, we also have the concern about the using the technology development for supporting the blue economy development in Indonesia, especially in fishery sector. Yeah, thank you.
And so thank you very much for that. And I was just going to say how excited I am to have Nadia here to talk about this technology. When I saw her presentation about a year and a half ago as part of a tuna forum, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the kind of innovation that we need. And it's so exciting to see young people, stepping into this space and helping to develop these solutions. And so it's really encouraging to see that evolve. Do we have any other questions from the floor? Yes, over here. She's coming with the mic.
Hi, thank you. My name's Maddie Green. I'm from the University of Tasmania. My question's for Nadia. Excellent technology, great forward thinking. I love that. You talked about wanting to develop more for the Thunnus group. And so I was curious, what have you got working at the moment with which tuna, and which tuna are you looking at in the future?
Sure. Thanks for asking this. It's a good question. We are really hoping, well, we're currently developing our technology to target the main, the Thunnus species that are primarily targeted in industrial and also smaller scale wild capture fisheries. So big eye tuna, yellowfin, the bluefin tunas, skipjack. We are working to develop those genomic assays now. We have a version of our app that is trained on adult tunas, a subset of those species. And so anyhow, yeah, those are the species that we're working with. We've talked a lot with law enforcement groups that are interested in those particular species, but other users as well with other additional applications. And really our main goal is to hit the species that have the biggest problem, the biggest need, and really try to meet that need with an easy-to-use technology.
Great, thank you.
That was an excellent question, and I think one of the features about the genetic testing that they're doing is it's also a verification and validation tool for the AI, so it just makes AI better. And I think Nadia made a really good point about, there are enforcement agencies that are looking at it. I gave an example of one context where it was used, but I don't know if anyone from CSIRO is here, but the genetics that are, oh, you're from CSIRO, sorry. But, the close kin genetics that are being developed, to identify population segments within the broader stock, is, I think, going to be really amazing as it evolves. And so we have another question in the back there.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Kozi, and I'm with the Regional Secretariat, CTI. This question is for Dr. Nadia again. So in terms of working with organizations and other agencies, if you were to develop the test kit for a new species, how long does it take to develop that, considering the DNA template, the primers and all that? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a obviously very relevant question. It really depends on what existing data sets and resources are out there that we can maybe take advantage of to then design our genomic test kits as well as the app. And we've talked with some users that just need one component or the other, so that plays a factor as well. But for the genomic tests, if there's existing genetic data that we can take advantage of and that does what we need it to do, discriminates the species that need to be discriminated and are consistent, then we use those existing data to design the assays that power those tests. If those data don't exist, then our first step is not data mining, it's data generation. And along with that comes, do you have the samples that are needed to generate the appropriate data to allow you to develop an effective test? On the other side of the coin is the AI app capabilities, which we've heard in a lot of the AI-focused talks today are extremely data hungry. You need the photo resources to be able to develop those. And so same thing, taking advantage of what's out there and then what isn't out there, working with partners to develop what we need to be able to build the application.
We have another question in the back there. Anna.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Anna Dahala from the Pacific Island Fisheries Forum Agency. I'm here with some representatives from some of our 17 member countries. My question is to you, Nadia. I'm sorry you're getting a lot of questions, but that goes to show your presentation is quite interesting. I think I saw in your presentations that you're doing some work with sharks, if I understand that correctly. And my question is about whether the testing that you do could work on fins alone, minus the carcass. You're probably aware that some of the shark species are listed in CITES, and through RFMOs, they are protected species. So I'm wondering whether those tests would be useful or could work in fins alone, because we know that at some point, some of the fins of protected species end up in the market. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're specifically asking about the genetic testing kits, is that right? Or the whole thing? As long as we can get DNA out of the sample, then we can use it in one of our genetic test kits. And there have been a whole series of, there's a whole field of other genetic work that has been done that has been successful at doing that. And so we're leveraging that capability here. Of course, it's more difficult with a dried fin, especially maybe if it's been salted. But our goal is to optimize our tests to be able to work with, for example, dried fins so that they can be used in a detection capacity in global fin trade.
Okay, I'm actually gonna break it up a little bit because I have a burning question for Professor Yu, and that's with respect to blockchain traceability and the engagement in Taiwan. Is what we've noticed where traceability is implemented, there tends to be a lot of acceptance at the front end of the supply chain with the producer and at the market side, but there's a lot of actors in the middle that don't like the idea of being transparent with their operations. So how have you gone about addressing that in Taiwan?
I think from the government side, they encourage us to do it, but from the I think from the both side or some industry side, maybe they were against. our solution. But we try our best to convince them. So currently, we have a couple of company cooperate with us. We are do some primary study and to see what's going on. But we still collect the response to see what's going on. But you know, the worldwide organization, point at Taiwan, see, we need to treat the worker more fair. So in this case, we need to transparency our data. Let the maybe the I don't know how to say that, the international organization, they say need to announce all the worker record and employee data, and let they understand what's going on. So in this case, the government invited us to do this kind of research. So up to now, the government is very encourage us. So we just doing it. I just say I will just try to use the emerging technology to do this. But for the strategy and for the business side, maybe we will say more detail in this afternoon based on our main project leaders. Liu Huang professor will say something this afternoon. So I'm an engineering people. I just doing my engineering skill. Okay, this is my side. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Yu. Do we have other questions from the audience?
Thanks, Buba. I have a question for Vincent. So, really because I really recognize your statements on the how to strengthen or maybe reuse some existing platform. So, is there any main reason behind it? Because because we have already invest so much, or because we do still believe that existing regional platform could be also still can a solution, or maybe what the new thing that we can bring into that existing platform? Because I think sometimes we, cycle of the solutions. The current solution could be another problem in the next. So I think a regional approach is really important in the RFMOS levels, in ASEAN level, but again, there is so many indicators that we need to consider, let's say the political situation in the countries. If one member have the really strong opinion to oppose all the solutions, we cannot always use the, what we call it, the agreement for all. Yeah. So how we approach those challenges with the strengthen the existing platforms? Yeah. Thank you.
That's a really good question. Thank you for the inquiry. Just to reframe the question, how I understood it, the question here is how can we engage with, for example, regional fisheries management organizations to update conservation measurement measures to hold everyone accountable. In my opinion, and I'll give my example working with the United States and Canada, we've tried for years to update conservation measurement measures with regard to forced labor, human labor at sea, and speaking about our special session tomorrow, tabletop exercise framework is a low-cost way to test anything, and so tomorrow we'll be testing 3 technologies here on stage, and one of the technologies is Cultiva's chatbot to kind of see how that technology can support combating IUU fishing. Now, going back to your original question, and this ties in with my speaker notes with the roadmap, we need to use technology as the buffer, as the grease and the wheel, because there's been so much friction between human beings. If we can incentivize the 3 stakeholders, the private sector, non-government organizations, and the government, the MCS, who are enforcing it, including the fisher folk, to adopt these technologies, eventually the data is going to show its head. And if the data continually shows its head, a member state eventually has to sign for updating these conservation measurement measures. So going back to enabling, advancing technologies like blockchain or genomics, I think that the proof is in the pudding, as we say in English, meaning when you have, or maybe in rice porridge, right? Eventually something's going to come to the top, and that's going to be the same with data. And referencing my work with Global Fishing Watch, their value proposition was, look, we just want to be a tech provider that shows the data. The data is going to tell the truth. We don't want to steer policy. We let the data speak for itself, and we let the policymakers make those decisions afterwards. So I think the same thing is going to happen with emerging technology. It needs to be the pathway. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vincent. I think you raise a really important point there, in that you have to incentivize, or you have to put the right incentives in place to encourage people to adopt technology, and that's really the discussion that it bubbles up in every one of these events. It's like, how do we incentivize the uptake, or how do we incentivize the development of this technology? And in this case, we're talking about scaling and implementation, and scaling's even harder. I've often thought that we could probably have a dedicated workshop session, and hopefully have some of the fishing industry in the room to actually discuss that kind of thing, because it is a significant blockage to advancing these emerging technologies. Do we have any other questions in the audience? In the back there, Derek.
As Claire goes back there, I just want to validate that point for a future SAFET conference. That would be great to kind of, and I know in previous ones you had a hackathon, and so to just get some folks in the industry to play around with technology tools and policy providers, and then create a systematic framework for that workshop where they're forced to work together, that'd be a great idea.
Excellent suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Baba, and thank you, presenters, for the presentations. My name is Derek from Solomon Islands, and I came from a country where a lot of our fishermen work in remote places where they don't have internet access. My question to Nadia is, do you have a solution for offline solutions in regards to remote places that don't have internet access? Thank you.
Thanks. I think that's on. Yeah, okay. Thanks for the question. Yeah, we have heard that need for remote capabilities a lot. So we have designed our app to be able to work offline. And then when someone re-enters Wi-Fi or internet access, then whatever work they have done on the app while offline gets uploaded to the cloud. And so it's able to function at sea if there isn't, a Wi-Fi connection available. And then there's full real-time functionality when it is.
Excellent question. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I actually have it's something that's been kind of swimming around in my head, since our Pacific colleagues spoke up. In the Pacific Islands, I'm sure most people in this room are familiar with Fiji water. It is a brand, and I think a lot of people are familiar with that same little square bottle that they charge a premium for. It is water, and they get $8 a bottle for it in the U.S. There's no reason why we couldn't have products that are fully traceable and verified and validated from Iceland, and some of the work that they're doing around nutraceuticals and that kind of thing, or from the Pacific Islands, have branded Pacific tuna from the Pacific Islands that has the same level of status and recognition as Fiji water. But ensuring that fraud doesn't get into the supply chain is the real trick, and that's where things like blockchain and things like the genetic verification comes into play. And so it's really exciting to hear some of these developments evolving, and I think we'll probably continue to see even more of these things evolving in time. Yes, Claire.
So I agree, and I think that's it's really important, and fair trade does that really, really well. And I guess one of the things that's potentially tricky is trying to make sure it's cost effective. Great. I was like, no, yeah, I don't want to pick on you, but how do we make, and for all of you, how do we make the technology accessible, cost effective? Because if it's not cost effective and it's going to have to be passed on somehow, is the consumer then going to pay for the product? No, generally consumers have little hands and very deep pockets. So really, I guess the question is, how do we continue to work to make it cost effective for implementation? I think it was raised yesterday that governments have no money and they never do, and industry doesn't want to pay for it. And, it's a reality. So any ideas on that one?
Maybe I'll kick us off on that. I 100% agree with you. It might be the most useful, great, technology in the world, but if it isn't cost effective, it won't get used, and it also won't get used in maybe some of the applications where it's most needed. So at least for iCatch, we're early in our business model development, but that has been at the forefront of that development so that we make, part of the usability that I mentioned in my talk is that cost piece and making sure that it is affordable to the people that need it. And so I think it's being intentional maybe in your model, your business model development, and ensuring that that piece is there from the beginning. There's obviously certain constraints that can't be done. One of our hopes is that by targeting high need, high impact species identification problems, that helps with scalability of our product development so that we can offer our test kits, for example, at a cheaper price than we would if there was much lower need for that. Yeah. It's a tough problem. I will say, though, that our genetic side, I mentioned the current genetic testing that's done where a sample has to be sent to a genetics lab and is processed there, the sequencing has to occur. It is time intensive, effort intensive, it's very specialized, which all of those factors do make it cost intensive. And our goal is to either cut that out altogether with something that is, less of those things, cheaper, including, or to minimize that.
Professor Yu, how have you managed some of the cost implications in Taiwan with the blockchain solution?
Up to now, I think in Taiwan, the blockchain only with so-called MOE, Ministry of Education, they support a big funding to apply the blockchain in the industry, in the education area, to let the student can apply their diploma only one time. And any company, if you want to get a job and show your diploma came from the blockchain. I think the government try to do this, but about that, I cannot see another successful application. But we try to develop more application in this area and see what's going on. So especially this area, we are first time to try here. Yeah, so we hope in the future will be very successful in Taiwan. Yeah.
And I think it's a really important point that Claire made as far as, government coffers are usually quite limited, and it's hard to know where the other investment might come from. Private sector is fickle, and it's a shame that instead of sending phallic rockets into space, that Elon and Jeff Bezos aren't trying to figure out problems here on our own planet. But if we could somehow get people to focus more on the problems we have here at home than reaching to travel to Mars, that would be very nice. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Gary, you have a question.
Thanks, Bubba. I think for me, and speaking on behalf of the IMCS network and our members, a lot of whom are developing nations, critical that it's all well and good having this technology, but the actual implementation in country for many of these people is going to be extremely challenging if the cost exceeds the benefits that the technology will deliver. And you spoke of the genetics side of things. That's incredibly powerful tool, as we discovered in New Zealand, and it can be critical for securing a conviction, but if you can't afford to do it, then it's a pointless exercise. So I think one of the key things that all technology providers need to think about is how do you maximise the technology and drive down the cost. You work with the end users, and that's one of the things I think is coming through for me is I'm not hearing anybody saying that they've gone to the end users and said, what's your problem definition? They've gone and said, here's a solution that we think can solve your problem. So part of the problem definition is cost. It's not just the fishing issue. So you need to wrap that into your thinking, I think, is bringing down that cost. And I think at scale, as we know, if you can produce something at scale, then cost comes down. But I'd like to know sort of how you propose to overcome that barrier to successful implementation of these technologies?
Panelists?
Maybe I'll start by saying the partner network slide that I showed has been really critical for us, and our team is new to the seafood technology sector, but we're not new to fisheries management, fisheries biology sectors, and so we've been lucky to be able to leverage professional relationships that we've had for a long time and expand from there to really build a group of end users or people much more close to the end user that can identify the most problematic species, and that determines where we've been going so far. It's also been critical to the design of our tools to make sure that it's not cumbersome and annoying to use, that it's actually going to be, I guess, offering a value to them in a easily accessible way. We've found that very valuable, is really just soliciting that feedback. And we're still building that network so that we can get that information for sectors that we're not currently in or not currently thinking about quite as much. So I think you raised a really important point.
Well, and it is an important point, and it's the theme of the conference, impact at scale. How do we get to scale? How can we create the mechanisms that we're not stuck in this chicken and egg cycle where we can't get the investment in to actually develop and scale the technologies in any particular instance, whether it's AI or EM or blockchain, whatever it might be. It is the central challenge to all of these technology initiatives. We are actually right on time. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for the excellent questions and engagement as part of this session. And please, let's give a big hand of applause for our speakers. So, thank you very much, and we're going to go straight into the next session, which is a continuation of advances in enabling technologies. And if I could ask our presenters to leave the stage, you're welcome, and we'll have our staff come up and move the chairs back out so we can invite our next speaker up. Thank you so much.